my previous videos, I showed you real garbage items, thrashed, torn, totally wrecked, that sold for $75, $100, even over $200. And your response? So many of you asked, is this legit? How fast do they sell? Wait, is this money laundering? So let's clear that up and go even deeper. Today, I'm answering your most asked questions about selling damaged clothing and how the thrashed keyword is helping smart resellers cash in. We're talking, how long do these items really take to sell? What types of destroyed pieces are most profitable? Why buyers are paying for premium flaws like these. And no, this trend isn't shady, it's a strategy and it's working. One viewer left a comment on that last video. She went back and had added thrashed to her listings, even bumped up the prices and started making sales within a few days. So today I'm not only answering those specific questions, but I'm also going to show you 5 different types of thrashed items that you should be on the lookout for. The kind most resellers skip, but the right buyers will pay up for. Real quick, you might be wondering who I am. My name is LeeMeier. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4, and I've made well over $100,000 flipping used clothes and other items on sites like eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. And I'm on a mission to help as many resellers as I can be able to hit that $100,000 mark for themselves. Before we get started, I do want to take a second to invite you to check out some of my freebies that are going to help you hit that $100,000 mark a whole lot quicker. Down in the description below this video is where you're going to find things like my best brands list, my best keywords list, my reseller bootcamp, my free $100,000 reseller challenge. All right, so let's start off with answering some of the most common questions that I got in this garbage clothing video. If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to link to it up here so that you know what I am referring to. First up, there were a lot of comments regarding how long these items take to sell. What is the sell-through rate on these types of items? And it's a little bit nuanced, the answer for that. I wish it was a straightforward answer, but it's not as straightforward as brands. And looking up a sell-through rate, say when it comes to a brand, you can compare how many items are listed and how many items are sold. With destroyed items, thrashed items, there's a lot of different keywords being used. A lot of sellers do use the keyword thrashed, but there's actually a lot of destroyed items that are selling that don't even use that keyword. So it does make it a little bit hard to do that type of research. It also is a little bit maybe of an overused keyword where a lot of sellers are throwing that in just to throw it in, and it doesn't accurately describe that item. So it makes it very hard to sift through the data and to actually get you a number of what that sell-through rate is. Really what it comes down to, and what I'm going to help you out with in this video, is knowing the types of items that are selling, knowing which items are selling the fastest. Because it's definitely not anything and everything that is selling when it comes to destroyed, damaged clothing. And I'm going to be covering the 5 types of items that I look for when sourcing. The next question I got was regarding pricing. And because a lot of these items are unique, one-of-a-kind items, it can be very difficult to price them because there's not a whole lot of comps out there. So I would suggest searching for similar items, doing the best that you can, and pricing on the high side because you can always come down, you can't go up. Another question I got is, how long will this trend keep up? And I can tell you from experience that the first thrashed item that I sold was several years ago. So I can tell you this is not just a small time frame, small window of time where these types of items are selling. They've been selling for a number of years, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. Who's buying these items? A lot of you had some really good guesses on the types of people who are buying items in damaged condition like this with the thrashed look. And to tell you the truth, your guess is probably as good as my guess. Whether it's cosplaying the working class, love that theory by the way, or kids who don't want to work a blue-collar job yet want the look of those clothes, they just don't want to do the work to get there. Whatever the reason, this is a hot trend and sales are on fire on every platform. Many of you wondered if it was money laundering, and I can certainly understand that skepticism, but with how many sales are out there, again, again on multiple platforms, as well as personal experience selling items like these myself, I can tell you that these are real sales. So what types of items sell? Do all destroyed items sell? And the answer is no, but I'm gonna show you what to look for that's gonna be a really good bet to making profitable sales with these types of items. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of the sales that are happening with this keyword. The first type of item are paper thin tees. And I did exclude graphic tees from that because I'm gonna be going through that next. So number one, paper thin tees. This first item here is from Hanes. This is a sleeveless shirt. It has a burnout style of fabric. It's got holes, it's got a patch there at the front center of the chest. This item had one bid on it and went for $37.50. Here's another burnout tee. This one sold for the full asking price of $120. It's got runs, it's got holes. The tag is pretty much completely faded on this one, and it still sold for $120. This next one is a camo tee, and this one sold for almost $90. This has some small holes. It's got some wear around the neck. It's got larger holes there near the hem. This one has no tag, $90 for that one. And then a plain white tee. This one is from approximately the 1980s. The tag is almost worn, but you can make out that it is made in the USA. There's large holes at the neck, large holes in the armpits. This one sold for $180. And then another plain white tee. This is from Fruit of the Loom. This one has a lot of dirt, a lot of stains, as well as holes, and this one sold for $30. So what you're seeing with many of these items is that they are vintage. That is the primary type of item selling when it comes to thrashed. The next type of item that I hinted at are graphic tees. These are anything with bands on them. That's pretty obvious if it's a band, especially if it's a vintage item. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter the condition. But aside from brands, there's so many other things that are selling well and to be on the lookout for. Different brands, different companies that are on the front of the shirt, different characters, cars. One of the first items that I sold in thrashed condition actually said Nordstrom on the front. All right, so some examples for you. This is a Qualcomm t-shirt. The price is crossed out, but I did look this up in Terapeak and it's showing it sold for the full sale price of about $59. This next item is a Betty Boop t-shirt. This was listed for $80 and then a best offer of $60 was accepted. This has small pinholes. It's got frame there around the neck. So this is a really good example of sought after characters where items are selling even when they're damaged. This next item is from Honda Racing. This one sold for the full asking price of $150. Check out the shoulders on this one. It's also got a lot of yellowing to it. It is a made in the USA item. Again, $150 for that in that kind of condition. And then this shirt actually says San Francisco on it. So if it's from a certain place, if it's got a name of a city, those can be profitable items for whatever reason. This one sold for the full asking price of $75, and this kind of has an all over staining to it. And any kind of vintage brands. This is a vintage Nike with that swoosh there on the front. This one, a best offer of $42.50 was accepted. This one's got cut off sleeves. It's got holes and lots of paint. But you don't necessarily even need to have a recognizable symbol or logo or company. This is an example of an owl t-shirt. This one actually doesn't even have a tag. It is single stitch, and you can see there on the sleeve what that looks like. If you're not familiar with single stitch, that's an easy way to be able to identify vintage. My only caution being that single stitch is starting to show up on newer items to mimic a vintage look. But this is a true vintage shirt. It was listed for $50 and it sold for $30, even with a pretty large hole there on the front. Next BOLO type are jeans, especially vintage, especially if they're union made in the USA. And to be vintage, it doesn't even have to be that old. Items from around the Y2K, even early 2000s, scarily are now considered vintage. I've got a few items to be able to show you here. This first one is a pair of painter pants from the brand Dickies. This one has got paint on both the front and the back. It looks like it's been used by a painter. A painter's been wiping his hands off on his pants. This one sold for the full asking price of $45. I went to double check that sale price within Terapeak, and I did see a second pair from the same seller that sold a little bit after this one, and that one sold for $50. Then this is an example of a vintage pair of military pants. This one has stains, it's got paint, it's got a hole in the knee. This was listed for $75 and it sold for $50. And then vintage Wrangler. Both knees on this one are totally ripped out. It's also got stains, which is very common with this look. Stains are actually a good thing. And this pair of pants sold for $49 after a best offer. You're also gonna see a lot of Levi's 501s selling in thrashed condition, and these can range anywhere from $50 up to $200 depending on the age of the item as well as the condition. And Jinko, that's another big one when it comes to destroyed items selling. Not all of the sales are using thrashed. This is one where a lot of items are selling that aren't necessarily using that keyword. But as you may know, Jinko jeans, no matter the condition, can sell anywhere from $50 to $200, even $300, $400, even up to $1,000 in not perfect condition with holes, with fraying, and with rips. The next BOLO type are jackets. Same kind of story with this one. You want to look for vintage. You want to look for anything that's union made, or if it's made in the USA. Even if it's from Y2K, again, early 2000s era, even those newer vintage are selling well. This is an example of an unbranded chore coat. This one looks very similar to Carhartt, but it is different. There's a few differences, so I don't believe this is an actual Carhartt. The seller doesn't know on this one. You can go ahead and look it up for yourself and be able to read that description. It's actually a really interesting description on this one. It was listed for $220 and it sold for $160. And then this is vintage Walls insulated jacket. This one is worn through in a large area there on the front. It was listed for $50 and it sold for that full asking price of $50. And then this one is a Wrangler jacket. So Wrangler, you've seen that in both jeans as well as jackets. So that is one to definitely pick up. Make sure that you research your comps, of course, before you go and spend anything. But this jacket has a lot of large holes. It's got hand-sewn patches there. It's worn through heavily almost all the way around the neck. This was listed for $200 and it sold for $150. And then another vintage jacket without a tag on it. This one was sold as is, as are all of these items, but this one looks like it has a large shark bite there on the front, or maybe the person got attacked by a dog. I am not totally sure what happened with this one, but wait till you see the back because it gets even worse. This thing is full of holes all the way around, rips and stains, but on the back side, this is pretty much gone. There's not a whole lot of material left there. And yes, this is a vintage item. The listing says it's from approximately the 1950s and that it's sanforized, but I'm not seeing any sort of tags on this one to be able to verify that. It was actually listed for $100, and when I went to look up the sale on Terapeak, it's showing a sold price of $120. And yes, this does happen where buyers offer over the asking price. That does happen on eBay. That can happen, and it does happen on eBay, although it's usually not very common unless the item is in demand and the buyer's worried about other offers coming in. Then this next one is a Filson tin cloth coat. And typically you might think that these items need to be in pristine condition to be able to turn a profit, let alone be able to make a few $100. But this seller went ahead and listed the item with its flaws. It's got fraying at the edges. It's worn through there at the shoulder. And this one sold for $439. And this is a vintage Filson item. So yes, the items that are selling do depend a lot on what brand it is, if it's a vintage item, or what's on the front, such as some of those graphic tees that you saw. And speaking of brands, you may have noticed that I left out Carhartt. I did that on purpose to be able to show you that it's not just Carhartt items selling. But of course, Carhartt is the giant of this look, but there's still plenty of other options. Anyhow, this video wouldn't be complete if I left Carhartt out entirely. entirely. So here's a few examples of the types of items that are selling. This is a pair of jeans. These look pretty bad from the front, but they get way worse on the back. The back, there's almost no material left there in the seat. You'd have to wear something underneath it. At least I hope you would wear something underneath it. There's also an attractive blue patch there in the crotch that shows through. This seller was a little bit ambitious with their listing price. They listed it for $260 and they got a sale at $60, which is still pretty good in my book given this condition. And then this is a destroyed Carhartt coat. There's large rips there at the bottom. You can see the pockets behind it. There's rips there in the lining, lots of fraying. One shoulder is about to come off and it's worn through at both of those sleeve cuffs as well. This coat was listed for $100 and it sold for $75. And then this pair of green jeans, these sold for $75. They're torn there at the top of the double knee. There's a large hole at the thigh. There's holes at the knees. Again, $57 for that condition. And then this sweatshirt, this sun faded sweatshirt. I love this item. There are tons and tons of holes in it. In addition to that sun fading, that bleached look, I'm not sure what made these holes. They have a definite look to them. It almost looks like they got caught in a blackberry briar. One of the sleeves is almost half gone there in a section. That sweatshirt was listed for $60 and it sold for $50. And then this next one is another pair of double knee jeans. This one has multiple holes on it. One of those double knees is almost starting to come down. There's also holes there in the crotch. And this one sold for the full asking price of $150. Now I know that all of these sales that I've showed you have come from eBay because that's where I like to do the bulk of my research, but these types of items are selling well on every single platform. Carhartt is doing especially well on Poshmark, maybe even a little bit better than eBay. If you love learning about this kind of thing and how you can be successful right where you are, no matter where you live, I'd love for you to check out the Empowered Reseller VIP program. Every month, my VIPs get free access to my monthly sourcing box. This is a deep dive into a lucrative clothing niche that I've designed for you to be able to have success right where you are, to not have to be brand dependent, to be able to have bigger profits on every item so that you can make more with working less. Plus you get access to my entire course, Master Vault, as well as live Q&A days where I get to answer questions, do store reviews for my members. And for a limited time, at least as of the recording of this video, I am giving a huge bonus gift of all of my keywords that sell resources. That's all of the posters. That's all of the guides. These cover keywords like thrashed as well as so many other high profit keywords. This is my gift to you for joining, and I know that it can help your sales turn around even on your existing listings and help you be able to source more profitable items in the future. All of the details are down in the description below this video. All right, so I hope you found this video helpful. If you've sold these types of items, go ahead and let me know in the comments. And if you're looking for even more keywords, I'm gonna link up here to a video that will walk you through some of the top trending keywords when it comes to selling used fashion online. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video soon.